Hey, welcome to the Search Bar. Has your marketing gone bitter or sour? Sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the Search Bar, where we're serving up insights for your digital marketing to work successfully. I am your host, Eric Ritter, SEO sommelier and CEO of Digital Neighbor, a friendly neighborhood digital marketing and SEO company based right here in Tampa, Florida. For today's episode, we are joined by Tami and Jaime Kent, the duo behind the NOMORE Foundation, a nonprofit organization focused on these four strategic initiatives: NOMORE Slavery, NOMORE Poverty, NOMORE Orphans, and NOMORE Hopeless. Thank you for joining us here today. Really excited to have you guys here. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, it's really great to be here, and I love the touch of the wine on the table, by the way. Awesome.
Thank you. Those are yours to keep, by the way, afterwards.
That's awesome. I love that.
So I could tell you were already looking at them a little bit there, Jamie. So don't worry, get to take them home.
Really
Get to take them
neat.
home.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, let's dive right into it here.
Sure.
Let's start off. I always like to start off. I'm talking about wine, keeping it on brand, starting with your roots, right?
Okay.
Kind of the foundation of every good vineyard, of every good wine. So just wondering if you guys could just tell me where you both are from, where you grew up, and let's just start there.
Ladies first.
Okay. I was born in Austin, Texas, and then moved to Atlanta when I was younger and spent most of my formative years in Atlanta. That's where we met and got married, and then managed to find our way down to Florida pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We celebrated our first anniversary here.
Oh, wow, okay.
Which was 28 years ago. So
Wow, congratulations.
something to be proud of.
Yeah,
So, yes,
thank you.
29 if
29.
you 28 plus 1.
Okay.
Clarifying.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm a Midwest boy. I was born in Iowa. Most people don't know where that is in the United States. But I was there till I was 12 and then moved to the Atlanta area, just outside of Atlanta, and that's where I spent my formative years. And then she told you the rest.
There you go. Okay, so the common
Rest is
connection there
history.
from Atlanta down here to Florida, to Tampa Bay.
That's it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Jamie, just starting with you, what made you so passionate about all these No More initiatives? I started off, I enumerated them. There's four
Sure,
of them.
sure.
So how did that all get started?
Well, I mean, first, I'll say that No More exists to connect people to care for the vulnerable. So we are a connector at its core, and we do that through awareness, education, and mobilization. So we want to educate people on these subject matters, and then we want to help mobilize them to action. There's a couple of points of reference for me personally where that all came from. And it really comes from my own lived experiences, as well as my own personal when I was a young boy. And I mentioned that I'm from the Midwest, but I grew up, my parents divorced when I was very young. I was a year old, and then my mom remarried a man quickly after that, and we moved to a very small town in Iowa where I thought we lived a pretty normal life from my perspective, but what I didn't realize is that my normal wasn't everyone else's. And so my stepfather was extremely abusive, and so at the age of 10, actually, funny enough, I didn't even connect it. I was getting ready to go. The next day was costume day, obviously, at school for Halloween.
Yep.
And I had laid out my costume on the edge of my bed. And my stepfather, who regularly was abusive towards us, was also very sexually abusive towards my sister. And she finally broke down and told my mom. My mom didn't know it was happening. Wow. Then the cops come in. And it was that kind of a scene, like at night, I'm in bed, excited about the next day. I see red and blue lights shining through my bedroom window on the ceiling, and that was it. A black trash bag was thrown in my face, and I put my whole life in a black trash bag and was removed from that place that's the only thing I knew where I grew up. And so that experience obviously led to some other experiences along the way. We're a faith-based organization, and so my roots. I came to faith in my high school years, and that really led into we served some time in our church, and we got to take young people on trips around the world, and we were exposed to the depravity of humanity as well as the poverty of humanity, and it was really you can't unsee these things, right? And so when you see these things, it just begins to bubble up in you, and then you connect the dots. Because when we talk about human trafficking, my sister was trafficked, by the way. We talk about foster care. I was in foster care. We talk about poverty. I lived in a car with my mom when she got us back. I experienced all those things. These things are not independent of each other. Rather, they're interdependent, where you find poverty, you find hopelessness, you find people that are struggling to make ends meet, and they will do desperate things. Desperate people do desperate things. And therefore, you find foster care for children that are removed from homes because of that desperation. You find human trafficking. These are they're very interconnected. And so we believe that mobilizing, educating people and then mobilizing them to action to help them take their next right step to do something about it is really important. I know I got really wordy there,
Yeah.
but I just wanted you to have a little bit of background where the passion comes from.
Right.
For me, you asked that question. It really does come from these lived experiences. And I think all of us have a lived experience, and we all can leverage that to make the world a better place.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Jamie. I can really feel the passion in the room here, right? and I mean, quite frankly, it's heavy stuff, right? It's very serious, heavy stuff. But it's important, to talk about these things, right? Because, if things are mentionable, they're manageable, right?
There you go.
And so I feel like it's important to get that out, out there so that people can understand these are real things that are happening, and
Absolutely.
You're a living testament to that.
Right.
And I'm just so impressed with you, Jamie, how you turned kind of that situation, lived experience, into where you are now, kind of, how you became passionate to help out others.
Yeah.
And I just think it's just really think that's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a joy for me. I love that we get to do this together. That it's not just me doing it, but it's us doing it, and we have a team of people, and so that passion doesn't just live in me; it lives in some other people too, and I'm really excited about that.
Well, Tami, so let's talk to you a little bit here. So I'm just curious, about the foundation, right? So kind of pivoting there into the foundation so how did you guys start the foundation, and how did that evolve over time?
Sure. Like Jamie said, it was those lived experiences. Holding the starving baby in a third world country and thinking, I'm holding the baby on TV. Like, this is the child that people sponsor, and she's in my arms. You can't, just like Jamie said, you can't unfeel those moments. And they did compel us because we saw these gaps growing up in the church. We had very, very different lives. I come from a pretty typical, normal, two-parent home. But my mom was a woman of faith, and from the time I was knee-high, I was serving. We were encouraged to give what we had, and whatever that looked like, and so I think in that moment, in those moments where all of our lived experiences and this awareness in our own heart kind of catalyzed. It created this passion and this desire to rise up and say no more. Not on our watch. Is a generation going to pass by that are hungry and thirsty and sick and in prison and desperate for hope, and we just sit back and clock in and out and not do something? We've got to do something. But most people, when we started sharing, what was on our heart and how we were feeling and all these experiences, most people resonated with that. And you can't convince me that people don't want to do something. I believe every person has a desire. That's why when we're little, our first, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a doctor. Right. It's a policeman. It's someone that's going to do a fireman. What are we going to do? We're going to go in and help. It's like from our littlest years, like it's imprinted on us. And so, as we start talking to people, it's like, but I don't know how. Where do I go? Who's doing this? When is it happening? How can I be a part? And then, the biggest of all of those questions is why. I think sometimes we don't even understand why these generational cycles exist, and how just one person making one step to care for another can literally change the course of generations. a small act of kindness. And so, with 2 quarters, I often laugh, like 2 quarters in our back pocket, we were like, we got a vision, we got to do something. Something's got to happen. And we were blessed to have a community that supported us and friends who came alongside and, volunteers who gave their time. And, we just recently, as an organization, celebrated 12 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Incredible.
Thank you.
And we've
Amazing.
seen,
Wow.
the work here locally expand statewide. And now we're, traveling across the country with some of our initiatives, serving, all over, helping people to see what they can do to step into care. And someone said, is this what you envisioned when you first started? And I was like, we had no idea. I mean, I would love to say we had a blueprint and the plan, and no, we didn't. We just had passion and support, and we just wanted to see it. And it's been step by step by step. Some seasons have felt like wind at our back, like the doors were just opening, and others we've had to travail, and just, how do we get to the next step? What does that look like? But it's led us here, and honestly, I'm like, I can't even imagine what comes next, because I couldn't imagine I'd be right here. But it's been an incredible journey for sure.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, it's almost breathtaking we've done in 12 years, right? Kind of starting with that seed of passion, wanting to make a difference. And then here you are 12 years later, and you've expanded from Tampa, Florida, making an impact everywhere, which is phenomenal.
Yeah,
right?
It is.
It's humbling.
Very, very
humbling.
Yeah, I imagine that. And I love how you said nothing starts really with a blueprint, right? Unless
Thank
you
goodness.
want to, 'cause
I don't know that he would have signed up. Because to be honest, a lot of people will say, oh, we get what you do because it's his story. And I'm like, what nobody realizes is when we launched this, he wasn't sharing his story.
No.
It was almost in the walking it out that it's like there was this epiphany, like, that's me. And we found that even with members of our team and volunteers that have come alongside to serve, they find themselves in places and they're like, wait a minute, this is my life story. Pieces of this were a part of my childhood, things that I'm passionate and inviting people into. This was my life. But I think sometimes as we grow up, we just, maybe we block it out, or we move through it and we feel like, like it's separate from us. But it's been beautiful to see the healing that comes when people are able to, through caring for others themselves, find healing. And so, it's pretty special.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk a little bit about kind of more about stories,
Sure.
right? So, Jamie, curious how you guys use stories in your marketing, right? Because I think that's something that's so powerful. I think on last week's podcast, I had on Mandy Schulis, and she was talking about stories, right? And how important stories are there. So I'm sure you guys do a lot of that with your marketing.
Yeah, we do. And it's a friend of mine said this to me once. He said, facts fade, but stories stick. And, I've kind of held on to that. And because all the while we realize that stories really do have an impact on others. It's something, we experience when we go to the movies, we go there, we want to live something. And so those stories, make us lean a little bit more and make an impact a little bit more and want to do something, because it educates us as well. When we hear something so profound, we're like, how can that's what we kind of experience all of our lived experience that we've had. We go, wow, that story is so compelling, I've got to do something. So we use these stories in a lot of ways, right? It's the traditional approach is, we really want to move people to action. So our heart is, when we tell a story, we're doing it so that there's an end goal. That person says, what's my next right step? And so how we do it is in a lot of different ways, through different mediums, through video, through traditional events that we do, that we take all over the country, that we use to leverage these really powerful stories. There's a lot of power in a story. And we let that story kind of marinate in someone's mind and their heart, so that helps them go, okay, now what do I do with that information I've just learned? And then we go, okay, here's your next right step. Here's ways that you can get involved. Right. And we immediately try to play out for them. We kind of hold their hand through the process of revelation, hearing the story, and then context. What do I do with that information that I just learned? And so when they hear a story from us, there is always now here's your next right step. Here's your call to action. This is what you can do to make a difference. So I don't know if I'm answering your question in its totality, but the goal here is we want those stories to move people to action. And so how we leverage those stories, we're always looking for a story that has, maybe it moves that person emotionally. And so we're looking for stories that have that kind of an impact that make you stop to listen. And it's funny. I've always loved storytelling. I've loved watching movies. I'm the sappy guy that watches the Publix commercials. I'm like, they're selling groceries.
I think we all do. Yeah.
And I'm like,
they do a great job.
I'm crying. Yeah. And I'm like, they're telling powerful stories, stories of the human spirit, right. And that's what we want to do. We want to, and it's funny because in my professional background, I did data analytics. And so here I am saying, facts fade, numbers fade, and they change too all the time.
Right.
Data in, data out, and so, but stories stick. You can't argue the life of a person and their lived experience. You can't argue their testimony, if you will. And it's powerful, and it moves people. So, we leverage stories all the time. Do you have anything you want to add there?
No, I think stories make those numbers make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Some of the numbers are crazy. Like we talk about millions of people enslaved, more than any other time in human history around the world. Yeah. You talk about thousands of children, just here in our Tri-County area that need safe and loving homes. I can throw those numbers across the table to you, but if I introduce you to a woman and she tells her story of how she was trafficked and how someone intervened and where she is, and you see her life, and the redemption piece of that, or if I introduce you to the Smith family who just said yes and opened their home and 2 little toddlers came in because they needed a safe place to land, and you see the beauty of that, it changes it. It's no longer, this crazy statistic or this issue that's outside of my control. Like, gosh, that's only superheroes do that, or only really extra special people step in. I can't. Who am I? How can I? But then you begin to see yourself in the people who stepped into care. You begin to see family members or friends who may have struggled with the same issues. That here's this woman who was trafficked, but she was vulnerable, and she, how old was she, and where was I when I was that age? Like, it just starts to make it connects with our hearts differently.
Yeah, and what we found is that the best lived lives are the ones, and we've had this experience ourselves, but we watched other people, the best lived lives are the ones that are lived with others, live to serve other people. And so there's such a tremendous amount of joy that comes from being able to pour yourself out and give to other people and be generous with what you have. And so there's something that just, it's not tangible, but it really does impact your life, when you feel like you can make a difference in someone else's life. And when we tell stories, we tell it from the vantage point of, we want to help you make a difference in someone else's life. We want to help you take your next right step in making a difference in someone else's life. And we've seen that play over and over and over again. Yeah. We have story after story, even in our own family, Right. And I used to say this often, what you do in moderation, the next generation will do in excess, whether that's good or bad. Mm-hmm. So why not make it good? Why not do the best good that you possibly can? Because then the generation that follows behind you has a trail that's been blazed so that they can do even greater things. And that's what we want to see happen in our communities.
Absolutely.
So powerful, everything you said there, right? Kind of making that human connection, right?
Yeah.
Kind of humanizing things,
right.
Because, numbers really don't mean anything to anyone, right? Especially if they become so outrageously large that people almost can't comprehend them, right?
That's right.
It does not compute, with people, So it's so true because that's how people connect with each other. They make that emotional connection, right?
Yeah.
That's why Publix is so successful.
That's
Just
right.
on a
I
side
know.
note there, right?
Yes.
Because they
I gotta
understand
go buy the
that.
sweet potatoes
Right.
because my family needs that experience on
Exactly.
Thanksgiving, right?
You know, so they
we
totally
see it.
understand that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. So you guys have a lot of stories, right? Because you impact so many different areas, right?
Right.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, you know, is there maybe somewhere where you guys see a gap or somewhere where you want to maybe create another solution? I know you guys are already touching so many different areas, but just thought I'd throw that out there.
Yeah, I think the gap we see is that people don't necessarily realize that these issues are interdependent on one another. You know, we tend to see issues in silos. So, you know, you've got human trafficking over here and maybe orphans or kids in foster care over here, and you got, you know, single moms or struggling families, that homelessness, you know, domestic violence, right? You got all these issues that kind of exist that as long as we see them in silos, they're separate. But the reality is, just like Jamie said earlier, there's this thread that ties them together, you know, in communities that struggle with poverty, or where you have a situation where you have a family, you know, maybe it's typical middle-class family, but then job loss, and they're in a place of financial strain and homelessness. I mean, in those places, you know, the vulnerabilities exist. You find addiction, you find children removed from their homes, you find domestic violence. I mean, all of these things kind of happen, and then when those children are removed, the most at risk for human trafficking in every zip code in the U.S. and around the world are children without families. They are the most at risk. And exploitation is happening everywhere, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking. But if we can help people see, you know, because at times topics will like rise to the surface, and right now human trafficking is a hot button topic.
Yeah.
And so I'm using that as an example. But you know, people are like, we've got to fight it. What do we do? And I'm like, if I could, not everybody can go and bust down a door, right? Like that's law enforcement's job. Like they need to go. They're the ones that bust down the door. There's the ones that step in to intervene. But if I could look at you and say, hey, can you tutor, you know, a second grader once a week, teach them how to read? Most people are like, yeah, I think I could do that. Or could you take a meal to a family that just took a child in? Oh, yeah, I think I could do that. You know, I mean, it doesn't have to be this giant life-altering moment that prevents. That's the prevention side of things. That's where one action here, because they're not siloed, has this ripple effect that impacts all these other areas. Right. And so...
Yeah, so I'll add into that. To me, the gap really isn't in programming. It's not in technology. So it's not in... We need to discover and roll out new programming to serve vulnerable peoples. It's not in technology. I mean, all the programs in technology are really good assets to leverage, but the greatest commodity that makes an impact in someone's life is another person. So the gap for me is more people. We want to, you know, we have an internal goal, we want to move 1 million people to action to serve the vulnerable. And so for me,
a great goal.
Yeah. And so for me, you know, it's all about helping people fill in the space to do those, to read to the kids, because we can't do it all. You know, not one person can solve all the problems, but all of us together can really work towards the end. Because when you get downstream and you start working with children that are in Title I schools and you're reading to them, or you're just investing in them a little bit, maybe that might prevent them from ending up in some harder places as they get older. So the goal is to, you know, engage an audience that has the ability, the capacity to make an impact. But the word that I think is really challenging in our culture right now is busy. Everybody is busy.
That's so true, yeah.
And we're filling our time with things that, you know, are good. And I'm not saying they're bad, but we have to pay our bills. We got to get our kids to school. We got to, you know, do our jobs. We got to do all these things. We got to take care of our yards. And then we fill our time, and we don't have a lot left in the tank to do something else. But if we can get people to understand that life is lived best with others and around and for others, and we've just seen it over and over and over again. So moving people, we're about connecting people to care. So we want to help connect more people to the idea of how they can do something in with whatever they have, We're not saying everyone needs to take in a child in their home, because not everyone can do that, right?
Right.
And we're not saying everyone needs to go and bust down the doors,
they can't.
because they can't. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But we're saying everyone can do something.
Right.
And we want to help you find that right fit for yourself. And that's what we focus on.
I think that's fantastic, right? There's not a one size fits all, right?
Right.
It's really depends on the individual and how they can contribute. And I think that's so empowering, because we all have a little something we can contribute, Some of us have more than others, and just kind of, to me, that's kind of very eye-opening, right? It's not just, you can only help in this way. No. There's a lot of different ways that you can help, and I think that's so powerful.
Yeah.
So empowering.
Yes, absolutely.
And you guys talked about so many different things you do there, but I just want to dive in a little bit more, wondering, is there one thing, one project that you guys are most proud of, or that you really want to talk about?
I think
I see a big smile on Jamie's face here. I think he.
Well, we talked a little bit about this, because honestly, within each initiative, there are incredible things happening. But I was trying to think of something that's more recent, and so I'll preface with, when we launched 12 years ago. Shortly after that, we created an event called the NOMORE Orphans Experience. It's a creative storytelling event where we share statistics, and presenters get on the stage. We've got an artist and a spoken word poet, and our goal is to help people see and connect to the need in as many ways as possible, and then respond. And so for the last 11, 12 years now, we have been taking that event around the country, and mobilizing communities to care for orphan and at-risk children in the foster care system. So, when the event's done, they're able to move forward to foster, adopt, advocate, or serve, a family. There's something for everyone of every age to get involved in. But a couple of years back, we were invited to look at the issue of human trafficking, and through that same lens of how do we open people's eyes to see the bigness of this issue, and present it in a way that's palpable, and because sometimes, I hate to say it, but it's like, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, right? Like we just, it's like, these are dark, scary things, and I don't know that I want to talk about it. And so how can we look through that lens and creatively bring stories to people that will help them to see? And our team came together, and again, because this is a hard subject, and we're not going to have survivors on the stage. We created an event where we share the stories of 4 unique individuals who were trafficked: men, women, children, labor trafficking, sex trafficking. I mean, all of it. Because a lot of times, you watch a movie or you see something and you think it's only this group of people, right? Like that only happens to them. And that's not true. I mean, it's every race, every gender, every ethnicity, every zip code. It's happening. Mm-hmm. And so how do we kind of do that? And so we have this event that we created. It's new for us, but it's been incredible to see the response of people. I mean, a woman came up to me afterwards, and just the way she approached me, I was a little bit like, oh, okay, what's going to happen? Because she was very intense. And honestly, it's an intense subject, so I was kind of prepared. And she walked up to me and she said, when I walked in the door and I saw the people on the stage and I saw men on the stage, I was like, why are men on the stage? And I was like, this is something that happens to women. And then it was like she had this kind of tough exterior and you could just watch it fall. And she began to weep and she said, I have sons. I never imagined this could happen to my sons. And it was such a powerful moment, and all these pockets into all these people. And then again, when they leave, it's like, what can you do? You can give, you can serve, you can take a training, you can, invite your business to learn how this happens there. Like there's all these avenues for people to go, because you're like, what do I do next? And we've made a way through our partners. Again, it's not us, it's all these partners that are on the ground, that are seeing these connections happen. And I just think that's the most recent, but it's also one of one of those things where seeing how the No More Orphans experience has grown beyond just here where we are and across the nation, and thinking of that ripple effect and what that looks like as we throw this rock into this pond, and what that will look like. It's encouraging and something I am really proud of it too, because it wasn't us. Like I didn't write it. It was our team, and I know we had talked about that too.
Yeah. What she said.
No, I mean, that's fantastic.
I mean, it really is. I mean, I agree with what she said. That is something really neat that we've done. But I think what's behind that for me is I'm proud most of, and this is going to sound weird, maybe, I'm proud of us. I'm proud of our team because every single day they're pouring themselves out to try to make the world a better place, to bring education around these issues that are so needed, and they're being creative, and they're pushing the limits of how to do that. Yeah. And I mean, it's what we've done is no small feat, and it's no different than anyone who chooses to build a business. And we're a not-for-profit. But for-profits, when it comes to building it, there isn't a whole lot of difference. I mean, it's hard work. It's a labor of love, and it's something you're passionate about. You're going to put everything you have into it. So I'm proud of our team and how they have poured themselves into this, to making moments like that happen that helps move people to action. I'm super proud of that. And so, yes, agreed. Yeah.
No, thank you for sharing that. So what you talked about, kind of the building awareness, right, about, helping with orphans there, I think is phenomenal, right? And the common thread through everything that you guys do is like the connection between education and how to actually make an impact, right?
That's it.
And to me, that's just so powerful, right? Is because, you're building, sure, you're creating awareness, right? But at the end of the day, these are heavy, really topics to talk about.
Of
people
course.
are going to feel bad, right? And it's just human nature, right? And that's what you kind of want. You want people to see this is important, this is impactful, but then you're also giving people maybe hope, right? That they can help, right?
Yes.
Like, hey, this, and I'm just gonna use my word, this sucks, right? What's happening here, this is bad, but this is what you can do to help make it better, right? And I think that's so phenomenal. You guys are connecting and bringing those two sides together.
It's okay for someone to feel bad. It's okay for someone to feel that, but it's not okay to live in that. We want them to also experience hope. We want them to experience a full life, and the best way to do that is to do something.
Right.
And so we go, hey, don't just feel bad, do something with that.
Right.
And here's 10, 20 things you can do today, right now.
Right.
And it's easy. We don't, it's not always a giant leap. It's you imagine, you're not having to jump across a chasm sometimes. Sometimes you're just taking a step across on the bridge that we've already created. So here's a small step, serve a family that's choosing to take in a child from foster care, bring a meal, do something, a random act of kindness, these little things that people can take as a next right step, and so we've created some really great steps too, which I'm proud of.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Thank you for sharing on that. I really, really enjoyed that. We're going to move on here, kind of the search bar. We got different things we want to hit on. So we're going to talk about barrels of wisdom, right? And so just love to hear from both of you. So my favorite question here, obviously, the name is the search bar, right?
Right.
And so what was the last thing in your guys' search bar that you searched for?
We were laughing when we saw that question because seriously, I have like 75 tabs open in my search bar. I'm that person. I'm that person. But last thing in my search bar was Google flights to England, because we have a son who lives internationally across the pond, and I was trying to find a way to get to him.
Nice. Okay. And did Google give you what you were looking for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, Google Flights is kind of my go-to. I mean, I know there are some other, like Skyscanner has an app, and that's usually pretty good. But Google Flights not bad.
It aggregates all the different airlines,
all
right?
The data.
All the information you need there.
Yeah.
And that's what Google wants to do, right? They want to give you all the information there, so you don't have to go anywhere else. They don't want you to leave Google, right? They want you to search and stay there, book your flight, book your hotel,
Yeah.
rental car, whatever it might
right.
be.
That's
right.
right.
So, but that's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Hopefully you get to visit him soon.
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay.
That's the plan.
Fantastic. Cool. What about you, Jamie? What's the
Not
last
near as
experience?
exciting. I got to tell you, like I went back and forth. Okay, so to be in full transparency, I had to get some blood work done this morning. Nothing major, just physical kind of stuff, and so I had to look up the address. So I Googled the address
There
for
you
the
go.
for the
There you
blood
go.
work place. But right before that, I maybe not near as interesting either. But I do fantasy football, and so I was looking up some of my
Stats.
players and stats and
Yeah.
who I needed to play or not play, that kind of stuff. That was yesterday. So
Gotcha. Okay, so yesterday a little bit more fun, kind
Yes.
of getting
Yeah.
information, wanting to win your fantasy football league,
Right.
Right.
Google
Right.
helping you out there,
Yeah.
and then today Google helping you find where you need to go.
Yep.
Right? So-
Adulting.
Yes.
Adulting at
There
its
you go.
finest.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh man, I don't know. I'm of a certain age. I still remember we had to MapQuest and print everything out.
Oh, me
You had
too.
to, right? You had to carry it
Yes.
with
Well,
you.
and I'm a little
Yeah.
older. I'm of the age where you had to fold out the actual.
Okay,
So,
see,
like-
and then you would highlight it. Which road am I going here?
Yes,
right.
absolutely.
And I remember one time I printed out the directions and I ended up in some cul-de-sac. And so I get out of the car, I'm looking around. This guy comes out of his house and he's like, "Did you use MapQuest?" And he's like, "Yes." It's like, "This happens all the time. You got to go down this way and that way. They got the wrong
hilarious.
directions on there." So
That's
so
awesome.
funny.
So
Yeah.
luckily we don't have those issues anymore. But that
Right.
poor guy now can't make friends anymore. Like, no one's going to stop by in front of his house because they went the wrong way. So it's just
That's
funny
awesome.
there. Yeah.
Love that.
Well, we're talking about search. Let's stay there a little
Yeah.
bit. So maybe Tami, if you can tell a little bit about your search strategy, right? Because there's a lot of people out there searching for what
Right.
you guys are kind of doing, what you're helping with. So just wondering, how do people find and get involved?
Okay, so obviously we've got a presence on all the social platforms with our hashtag or whatever you call it. What is it? A call sign? Look, I'm asking you.
It's fine.
At Declare
Yes.
No More.
Your username.
Username. Okay,
yes.
I'm like,
Okay.
what am I? What is the word? What is the
You
word?
could have a
It's-
hashtag too, right? that
you
people
can,
can
you
use.
can.
Yeah.
And now there's,
Yeah.
the debate. Do you do hashtags? Do you not do hashtags? Everyone's got a different
And
opinion.
it depends what time of day it is, right?
Right.
And where the
Right.
moon is and all these different factors,
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
Then
Yeah.
using it or
So
not.
Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, a bit, but we're at Declare No More. And, we're kind of consistently, on our website as well, uploading and allowing, there's a lot of opportunity for people. So, if they see something, they click the link, they head to the site where we've got the stats, we've got videos, we've got stories there, we've got ways for them to sign up. Some of that search happens organically because we'll do local outreaches where we curate opportunities for people to come and serve, and so they'll hear about it. They'll get an announcement or someone will share the link, and then again back to the they're on the website, then they're kind of learning about what's going on that way, and so it's a little bit of both of those, I would say.
Yeah. So it sounds like the website's kind of the hub,
Yeah.
right? Where people
Yeah.
can kind of learn and do everything. And then you're spreading the word out there on all
Right.
the social
Yeah.
platforms,
Yeah,
right?
we use a lot of grassroots, but we also do some traditional marketing stuff too. Not tons, but we're putting dollars behind search engine stuff and things like that. So to help kind of, especially when there's a specific thing we want to communicate to an audience.
Topic.
Okay.
So like we created
So like a campaign or
Yep.
something like
Yeah,
that?
we'll build
Yeah.
campaigns.
So we have like
Okay.
right now you can find we promote it, but we have an HTIQ test. Like, so
Human
what do
trafficking
you know
IQ
about
test.
human trafficking?
Thank you,
Yes.
Jamie. I was going to ask.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. We're a duo for a reason.
Yes,
love
there
it,
you
love
go. But we call the HTIQ test, and people can go on and it just ask questions, and as they answer them, if it's true or false, then they'll get the information there, and at the end they have an opportunity to sign up to attend a training, like deep dive in maybe for 35, 40 minutes and learn more about, the issue. And then from there are other opportunities for them. And so, we do kind of lead people on a journey from that initial stat they read or something going on to, what are the next steps?
Yeah, and I'm sure when you're out in the community, like you said, grassroots, a lot of people then, we Google, right? We
Yeah.
already talked about that. People are searching for you, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
you want to be there and be found when they're like,
Right.
who are these No More people? Really, are they
Right.
legit or not, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what people do. They kick the tires, right? They want to make
Right.
sure. And so they're going to go to your website,
Right.
go to social and everything there. So I think it's so important to have a consistent presence there,
Right.
which sounds like you guys you guys are doing a great job there. So I think that's a great takeaway for anyone, I would say. You know, obviously you guys have a 12-year head start, right?
Yeah.
But for anyone to legitimize themselves, make sure you have that consistent online presence, right?
Yeah, I think that's key. You know, we have someone who's dedicated on our team to make sure that presence stays out there. We were just having a meeting on the way over here about that. You know, we're in a bit of a planning season, so we don't have a lot of activity going on. And we're like, hey, it's still important to keep a presence out there. So continue to communicate about the things that we care about, that we're about as an organization. And so that, you know, that presence is really important. Just a consistent message that stays true to who you are as an organization. And that's what we stay focused on too.
Yeah. So talking about that a little bit more, we talked a lot like how, you know, you can connect people, how they can help, but just curious for maybe the listeners out there or for even brands or companies, what could they do right now to really help support your cause?
The first thing I think anyone can do, an organization, an individual, is become educated. What matters to you, and take some time to learn about it. And if that's, you know, learning about some of these issues that we've talked about, foster care, human trafficking, poverty, you can certainly come to our website, declarenomore.com, and we've got some stuff there that you can begin to learn about, and you can deep dive even further into that. But there, you know, education is powerful. And when you become educated, you become an informed person that can make informed decisions about what you do individually, about what you do with your business, and how you help the community at large. And so I think becoming educated is the first thing. And then secondly, commit to doing something. You know, take a small step. Don't go, man, I'm all in. I care so deeply about X subject, and now I'm just going to throw everything I got at it. And that can be unrealistic. Just take a small step. You know, if your business or your community group has never done something in the community in an outreach sense, like we've never gone, don't decide like my commitment is to get every employee to go do an outreach. You know, get two. You know, and say we're gonna go serve the homeless. You know, we're gonna go mow a lawn. You know, do something, you know, tangible, and take a small step towards making a bigger impact.
I love that. Just get your feet wet, right?
That's right.
Just try it out. Kind of see what it's best for you. And I think that's great because as an individual, you can do that. And a lot of times, you know, I asked about companies and brands, right? A lot of times they want to give back to the community, right? And it seems like you guys would be the kind of organization that can help them figure that out, right? Like, how can we do it? Hey, I got 5 people, I got 500 people, right? Like, what can we do here? So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you know, every nonprofit, it doesn't have to be us. And I think there are a lot of incredible organizations in the community that are making a significant impact. Do something. Get involved with them if it's not us. I mean, just choose to do something, because when you affect one, you affect the whole. And so we're always encouraging people, businesses, organizations, churches, to get involved somewhere, even if it's not with us.
Awesome. I love that. That's incredible, right? That there's so many worthy causes out there, right? And we don't want to forget about those. Like for me, for example, is with my organization where I work at Digital Neighbor, we're really big environmentalism, right? So we like to help out with organizations that are out there, you know, helping kind of reduce, reuse, recycle, right? That's like our big thing. You know, so there's a lot of different, and so I've never even like thought about like maybe there's other organizations out there, you know, that you can help as well. You know, you don't need to just focus on one sometimes, you know.
Well, and two, you know, within a business, every individual, like we've talked about, has a story. And so someone on your team might have struggled with food insecurity. You know, they may have gone through a season, whether it was in their childhood or, you know, their adolescence or even adulthood, where they couldn't afford, you know, there wasn't food for the table. And so they may be on your team, and they'll show up to an environmental thing. But if you go, hey, guys, we're filling bags for the school down the street, you know, 100% of the kids, they don't have food for the holidays, that person's going to roll up with a trunk load of groceries because their heart is there. And so it's just tapping into who's on my team. What are they passionate about? How can we do something? Because anytime you as a team can come together to serve, it just has this incredible impact. And it really builds the team as well, because then you go, oh my goodness, I didn't know, you know, Amy was so, I didn't know that was part of her story. And then all of a sudden there's this
Right.
camaraderie and this sense of like, we're in this together, you know, we're going
Right.
to do this together. And we see that with families. We see that with churches. We see that with businesses and civic organization. I mean, like everywhere we are, you know, people want that connection. I mean, we're talking about search bars. I mean, we live in the most connected time,
Yes.
you know, in human history also.
Absolutely,
But
yeah.
we feel so disconnected from one another. People feel lonely. They struggle. They don't feel like they're known.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are the opportunities for you to really know people, get to know people, do something with them. And
Yeah. I didn't want to touch on it earlier, but when you guys talked about like, you know, the human connection and the, you know, wanting to empower people to help others is, you know, all I could think about is, you know, nowadays, you know, we're so disconnected. We're all just in our phones and our devices all day. We don't even look up when someone walks by anymore, you know, and it's, to me, it's almost scary, right? It's like, what does that mean for the future? So I think it's so important to not forget about that. Like these are humans out there. They're going through this whole thing just like you are. You know, we're all in this together. So I think it's so powerful.
It's good.
Well, let's move on to my favorite part here. We talked about the search bar. That was a good question. But let's talk about the perfect pour. Right. So the perfect pour is always a listener favorite here.
Yes.
We got wine on the table, right? So we sent you guys some Mad Libs, aka fill in the blanks, right, to help create your own wine label.
So
for you.
to be fair, we did this together because, you know, wine is always better drinking with someone else, right? So we did this together. So we put our answers together. So if that's
exactly
we
what
don't
we're
have a
looking-
separate one. We have one.
Yes. Well, you guys are one team, right?
That's
You
right.
guys are a
Right.
team behind it.
That's
so
right.
the team created the label here.
That's right.
So I'm really excited to hear what you guys came up with.
Okay.
so if we were to create a bottle of our own marketing blend, it would be called Purposed.
Ooh, I like that.
Purposed.
Good, right?
Nice. It's very good. Yeah.
And
I can already taste it on the palate.
There you go. And our bottle of marketing has 2 key ingredients, which we've already talked about, but they're stories and steps. Awareness
like
and
that.
mobilization.
Yeah.
And so that's what it
Nice.
would be. And this blend is best for anyone who wants to make an impact.
Wow. That was just short and right to the point. Like you guys summed up the entire conversation right there on the wine label. I
There
love
you
it.
go.
Right? You don't take anything else away.
She took
Just-
it and ran with it. You might have wanted to read that, but she took it and ran with it.
I
Yeah, we were-
loved it. Thank you for that, Tami. So the 2 ingredients, right? We already talked about those quite a bit, right? So the stories and steps, right? So those are really, and would you say that's what makes you guys a little bit more unique as well, kind of as an organization?
Right.
I would, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of great organizations, I've already said that are doing really good things, but we are kind of the connector in this. And those people that are on the front lines doing the great work are incredible people, and they're friends of ours in a lot of those spaces. And so, you know, but they don't have time, you know, maybe to curate those stories or to help people kind of get connected into their organization. And that's where we step in and help them do that.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think too, it's one of those things where, you know, movement happens all the time, and I've shared this at events that, you know, movement is defined as a change of position, of place, or of posture, but it's also defined as a gathering together of a group of people to do something that no one individual can do on their own. But in many cases, you know, when we hear stories and we're moved just emotionally, you know, it's like it comes and goes so quickly. You know, life is happening so quickly. It's like, did you hear that? Did you hear that message? Did you watch that TED Talk? Did you, you know, wherever the space you're in, it's like there's this movement that happens in your heart. But if you're not moved to action, it's just a moment. Yeah, it's just a passing moment.
Right.
And so those steps are so important because people need to know, what do I do with this? And when they take one step, what is that phrase? I love it. It's the journey to 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
So true,
And it's like, so it's just take one step. Just take one, and then the next one will happen. But without steps, life is passing us by. So how do we, you know, take what we hear and what we learn and then move to action, even in just the littlest step that could truly have a trajectory that transforms a family, that transforms a community. Like we don't see, you know, the true ripple effect, but but it happens all the time.
I hope you and your audience are seeing how awesome she is.
Oh, God.
She's amazing. I was like, I don't even need to come to this show. Like, she can do it all by herself. I mean, I feel like sometimes I'm just the eye candy, really, to be honest with you.
No, you guys make a fantastic team. It's really incredible to sit across from me at the table and just kind of see the energy and the passion flowing between you guys. It's amazing, And so I just want to let everybody at home know declarenomore.com, right? Yes. On all the different platforms, which I'm sure, nomore.com was taken. So I really like kind of the call to action in front of it as part of your username, of your URL. I think that was a stroke of genius, if I may say so. Declarenomore.com.
We'll give our creative director all the credit.
Absolutely. So your creative director really did a great job there. I love that so much.
Thank you.
So guys, thank you so much for joining
This
today.
was wonderful.
This is awesome. We had a great time.
Awesome. Well, that's all we want to do. We want to have a fun conversation, right? Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for everyone. Just say, hey, cheers. Thanks for being on here. Thank you so much for joining us at the search bar at home as well, or in your car, wherever you're listening. You can connect with Tami, Jamie, and I on LinkedIn, declarenomore.com. Follow our journeys there. We'll add all the links there so you can connect with us directly in the episode description, the show notes. And of course, if you have any SEO or digital marketing questions, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. As the CEO of Digital Neighbor, you can probably tell I love talking about this topic. We really hope we filled your glass with some digital wisdom, some takeaways here, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Search Bar. Thank you, everyone.